Change. Change is something that often comes incredibly slowly. So often life goes on and things change oh so gradually until it all has, and we are left wondering how it could have ever been any different. In time, such change saw the erosion of the nation-state, the rise of supranational powers, the expansion of multinationals, companies going from one of many investors and collaborators in colonization to the engine expanding humanity's borders ever outwards. Companies rising to rule whole worlds, worlds whose citizens depend on their corporate overlords, not just for their job or political rights, but for the very air they breathe. There is no denying the power these megacorporations wield, yet none hold so much as a candle to Weyland-Yutani. All that they would one day be began with a single man, Peter Weyland, a visionary, an inventor, and a maverick in the spheres of business, a man who vowed to change the world. In 2012, Wayland took his first steps towards that goal, founding a corporation of his own, and within its first decade they achieved monumental feats, solving global warming, curing most forms of cancer, and producing automated life forms that could pass for human. Each year, they pushed further and further. Their endeavors surpassed previous milestones. In 2023, their partnership with NASA discovered some 6,500 planets that could potentially support human life. In 2025, they pioneered and produced the first hypersleep chambers. In 2027, their methods of terraforming were successfully automated, and plans for lunar terraforming and colonization were soon approved. Their development of faster-than-light travel made more distant missions a possibility. Soon, automated probes were launched, scanning the worlds of the solar system and traveling beyond in search of planets with great mineral wealth or that met with Wayland's terraforming criteria. In their wake, manned missions were planned and prepared, each to be led by one of the new graduates of Wayland's Explorers Academy, an alternative post-secondary education that focused on biotech, nanotech, cybernetics, and terraforming. These achievements brought vast wealth to Wayland and his company, but not content to rest on his laurels, he used these funds to acquire major defense contractors, which served not only to bring in more wealth, but to expand Wayland's contacts within government institutions, many of whom had already grown dependent upon the corporation. By 2036, the corporate headquarters were moved to newly terraformed Mars, effectively placing the company outside the reach of most terrestrial governments. This, combined with growing conflict between various mining concerns, began the age of extrasolar exploration, the age of Wayland. Colony ships of various size and make, many under corporate contract, ventured forth, ferrying miners, explorers, pilgrims, and colonists to worlds unknown. Yet, for all Wayland and his company had accomplished, by the end of the century, their fortune had turned. The sudden disappearance of Peter Weyland and the lack of any legitimate heirs saw the company fall into the hands of short-sighted managers who were concerned more with lining their pockets and short-term gains than any sort of long-term development strategies. This, combined with the company's mines beginning to run dry and the loss of the Prometheus expedition, caused the company's shares to stumble and then fall. The managers sought to rectify this in the short run by selling off a number of subsidiaries. This, however, would not end the company's woes, and shortly thereafter, it would be bought out by the Yutani Corporation. Yet Yutani recognized the strength of the brand and the colonial authority the Wayland name carried. As such, this merger was intentionally muddied, presented throughout the colonies and even within the company as if Wayland had purchased Yutani. This newly minted Weyland-Yutani possessed assets greater than the largest governments. They used their technical knowledge to establish shake and bake colonies across the frontier, each made up of prefabricated settlements built around an atmospheric processor, designed to turn these desolate and inhospitable lands into pristine worlds in the course of decades. These worlds were colonized and operated for private organizations, governments, and of course, Weyland-Yutani themselves. The latter of which took many forms: mining operations, research centers, vast manufactories, and prison complexes. Increasingly, the company operated as a realm unto itself. Yet, seeking to externalize their cost as much as possible, and to preserve their de facto independence, they sought a more intimate relationship with the armed forces of both the Three-World Empire and the United Americas. This relationship saw Weyland-Yutani supplying everything from sidearms and androids to the very starships that ferried these militaries across the cosmos. Their governments and their military arm, in turn, provided the company with special privileges to such an extent that it has become near impossible to distinguish when military units were operating under the interest of their nation, or those of the company. These connections emboldened Weyland-Yutani to use their wealth and their power to operate in extra-legal cases, ignoring or exploiting local laws without any fear of repercussion. To protect company secrets and to avoid scrutiny from larger governments, bribes and gifts became commonplace. Such notions proliferated across the company, with workers in the far-off colonies well knowing that corporate leadership cared more about the bottom line and productivity than whether proper procedures were followed. All of this eventually came to a head on the distant world of Acheron, where a Wayland colony, Hadley's Hope, was destroyed under questionable circumstances. Of course, corporate leaders were quick to point the finger, blaming the Union of Progressive Peoples. Admittedly, some believed the colony's destruction was nothing more than standard cut corners, corruption, and questionable corporate ethics. There are, however, darker stories, tales from within the company, that suggest Hadley's Hope is but one of many strange losses from the company's history. These losses dating all the way back to Peter Wayland himself. The Prometheus, the Covenant, the Affiance, the Nostromo, Sevastopol Station, LV-178, Lethe, and many more. Rumors range that the company found itself involved with secret bioweapons or cloning technology. But some say the company found something out there. Something they couldn't resist, and something they have proven they cannot control. Regardless, such accusations saw tension flare across the frontier, Seeing this as a chance to increase their bottom line, a number of Wayland executives partnered with rogue commanders in the United States Colonial Marines to instigate an armed conflict. Initially restrained to bombings and raids, this soon spilled across the frontier in open war, with both the Union of Progressive Peoples and the United Americas each grabbing as much as they could. Colonies caught in between were devastated or destroyed, and despite their initial hopes of making a financial killing selling weapons, the company found itself faced with a groundswell of anti-corporate sentiment, and soon thereafter, the United Americas passed the Colonial Protection Act, a work of legislature designed for many purposes, amongst which was working to limit corporate influence over the military and the outer rim of the human sphere. Over the coming years and decades, these efforts did little to reduce the company's power. Even stories of corruption and madness from Fiorina 161 regarding some strange space beast did little to reduce its influence. That is, until the dawn of the 23rd century, faced with a renewed sense of anti-corporatism, Renew-Indi declared themselves independent and broke from the company, where the expiration of patents saw Weyland-Yutani challenged in every market. The collapse of the synthetic market all contributed to breaking the company's hold, but perhaps most importantly, the unification of the United Americas and the Three-World Empire into a new government, the United Systems, which drastically increased the authority of government and shifted the balance of power within the human sphere. Sensing an opportunity, the United Systems moved to forever break the hold of Weyland-Yutani and the megacorps. First, by awarding government contracts to smaller firms, but eventually moving to use the power of the courts to dissolve them into their constituent parts. Never in its history had the company been so challenged. As such, Weyland-Yutani mustered their financial and legal resources to fight. For 3 years they fought, but in the end, the company was broken up. Their scientific, weapons, and bioscience divisions were absorbed directly into the United Systems military. And in its weakened state, what remained of the company was purchased by Walmart. Yet even with this apparent dissolution, reports suggest that figures loyal to the company continued to operate, monitoring the USM and their research, observing as the populace grew tired of the military's control, all the while biding their time, awaiting the opportune moment. And one such moment came in the calamitous aftermath of the Auriga incident, where much of the Earth was cast in toxic fallout. And like a phoenix, Weyland-Yutani emerged. Using their skills of environmental engineering, they once more restored the damaged Earth. This disaster weakened the hold of the USM, and with resurgent corporate powers, a new colonial government emerged. Yet, this resurgence did not go unchallenged. Countless colonial conflicts brewed, with new anti-corporatist rebels emerging. Regulatory agencies and those colonies that had only recently gained their independence from the company were unwilling to submit to it once more. In spite of these hurdles, the company grew. First, by investing heavily into what made the company profitable in its earliest years: engines, sleep chambers, and atmospheric processors. And over the coming centuries, these efforts bore fruit. As they expanded the human frontier, they rekindled the company's ties to the military and to the government. These new contracts provided the company with greater and greater wealth that allowed them to acquire both the colonial marines and their suppliers, Armotech. Such acquisitions granted the company access to alien technology gathered from generations of contact with the Yautja. And with this technology, they revolutionized the combat capabilities of their new military. They produced new lines of starships with integrated stealth fields and advanced energy projection. And by the dawn of the 27th century, Weyland-Yutani stands once more as the dominant social institution. They stand as the most powerful organization in human history, ruled over by a board of 13 members, and they have pushed humanity further and faster than ever before. Their colonial marines standing guard across the breadth and width of the human sphere, their excursionists standing as sentinels beyond, looking into the dark depths of the cosmos, knowing all the while the darkness looks back. I suppose only time will tell if they are truly capable of protecting humanity, or if their greed will destroy it.